From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
It's second harvest time.
We probably had the best second crop we ever had.
We check out the latest rice crop in Louisiana. Police uncover an organized ag equipment theft ring, but that's not all they found. Plus, the latest on efforts to modernize the federal milk marketing orders.
Class 1 price, it is a pretty big change.
The impact on consumers and producers right now on AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer.
Ben's bins, please hold.
Yeah, Ben's has been busy all day.
Seems like no one can keep up with this new Z series. What did you all put in these seeds?
Science.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Producers will soon vote on milk marketing reforms that will raise the price of the milk we drink. USDA releasing a final decision on amendments for the federal milk marketing order. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins me. Michelle, we're talking about referendums on each of the 11 milk marketing orders.
Yeah, Clinton, it's part of the modernization of the federal milk marketing orders the dairy industry has been asking for, and it's been a couple of years in the making. The recommendations are part of USDA's administrative rulemaking process. Now, if passed by producers, it would eliminate Congress from having to include order reform in the new Farm Bill and hopefully provide fairer pricing. USDA has just announced amendments to the final recommendations for the federal milk marketing orders are minor. However, the overhaul of the pricing system by USDA stands to have a significant impact on what producers receive for milk. The biggest change in the overall proposal is in the Class 1 formula, to use the higher of the Class 3 or Class 4 price as the base price mover.
That higher of, in terms of that Class 1 price, it is a pretty big change because right now we are at an average of the two with an added 74 cents. So this will change how that Class 1 price is calculated.
She says component pricing would change, allowing producers to get paid more for fat and protein in the milk. Plus, the proposal updates make allowances.
So again, we're all, living with a lot of inflation that we've seen over the last couple of years. And dairy processors are not immune to much of that inflation, whether it's wages, packaging, borrowing costs. So the allowances, the make allowances in the formulas are increasing for all of the dairy products, which will provide more money to help dairy processors cover their costs.
And there's a major structural change in the Class 3 formula, away from using the average of both cheese blocks and barrels for pricing.
The big change is to take out the barrels. So Class 3 pricing will be based only on block prices.
Finally, USDA created a special pricing category for extended life beverages. She says USDA estimates the overall cost increases on Class 1 milk will be over $4 billion, but the impact per operation will vary based on their location and processor.
The general expectation is that all dairy producers will see an increase in their baseline minimum prices. Now, if that actually shows up on their check depends upon their milk buyer and if that pricing flows through.
As far as the impact on consumers, International Dairy Food Association analysis suggests that the average gallon of milk will only increase by 11 cents. If passed, the rules go into effect in the second quarter of 2025. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Senate Republicans have elected a new majority leader. It's Senator John Thune of South Dakota. The 63-year-old is in his fourth Senate term. We spoke last with him over the summer about the Farm Bill. Thune has promised to work closely with President-elect Trump despite differences the two have had over the years. Republicans are replacing Kentucky's Mitch McConnell, the longest-serving Senate party leader, as they prepare to take majority control with the 53 seats they won in the last week's election. It looks like harvest will soon be wrapping up across the country. USDA is now reporting 95% of the corn crop has been harvested. That's 11% ahead of the 5-year average. For soybeans, 96% has met with the combine. That's 5% ahead of average. And cotton harvest still a ways to go at 71% picked. That's 8% ahead of normal. Rain continues to be a factor on both the east and west coast. Meteorologist Jack Van Meter joins us with an update.
And taking a look at some of our future systems moving into the U.S., we have two main and very distinct systems. One, a big low pressure system with a large cold front that is going to deliver a lot of moisture, especially to the eastern half of the United States. And then we're looking at another low pressure system right off the coast of the west there. So as I play this in motion, we can see that slowly but surely that changes are going to be moving through in the form of more rain. As we can see, clearing out with high pressure for mainly the middle part of the country in the plains, and we're actually starting to see some snow form off the top of the northern Rockies, and actually another system forming out into the Four Corner states, really expanding to parts of the Midwest and then East Coast as well as we start to move into next week and actually see some better chances of snow for the Great Lakes states. And a beautiful sunset to the end of harvest. Barry in Sidell, Illinois says this was his past year of harvest in 2024. I'll have more on your forecast coming right up.
Sales of tractors in the U.S. continue to slump. The Association of Equipment Manufacturers reporting the sale of all U.S. tractors last month were down 14% compared to the same month a year ago. Looking at year-to-date, tractors under 40 horsepower are down more than 14%, under 100 horsepower down almost 10%. Sales of 100-plus horsepower units have fallen more than 15%, while sales of four-wheel drive tractors were up more than 1%. Now, for the year so far, combine sales are down more than 23%. CNH Industrial reporting that its third quarter earnings fell 43% on that slump in the global ag economy. And now there are reports it may close a plant. The Des Moines Register reporting CNH is considering closing its plant in Burlington, Iowa. The company saying in an email it's, quote, tentatively decided to move the production of backhoes, tractor loaders, and rough terrain forklifts out of the Burlington plant to other CNH facilities in the U.S. and Europe, end quote. If it moves forward with the decision to close that plant in mid-2026, it would leave close to 350 people without jobs. A Canadian teenager has now been hospitalized in critical condition with suspected avian flu. Doctors are treating the teen at BC Children's Hospital in Vancouver. Officials are assuming the virus is H5N1 because they say there is so much of that strain circulating in the province. The teen's first symptoms began a week before they were hospitalized. Now, this appears to be the first known human case of avian flu acquired in Canada. It's not known how the teen caught it. Evacuation orders were lifted for people in Louisville, Kentucky following an explosion at a food dye manufacturing facility. 2 people were killed, 12 others were injured in the explosion. Officials say they all were workers at the plant. Louisville's mayor says employees inside reported everything was normal before the explosion occurred, but it is not known what caused the blast. Investigators in California say they've uncovered an organized agriculture equipment theft ring dubbed Operation Tractor Pull. The Tulare County Sheriff's Office says the ring targeted San Joaquin Valley farms. And after conducting extensive surveillance operations throughout the valley, authorities said evidence collected accounted for 24 pieces of stolen equipment valued at more than $2.25 million. Authorities recovered $1.3 million worth of equipment that they believe the suspects were trying to move across the southern border. Detectives also recovered 2 truck bed loads of processed marijuana and several guns. They've made some arrests, but say 5 suspects are still outstanding. Downward pressure continued Wednesday for a lot of the commodity markets. We'll see where things stand and what's ahead coming up next in Markets Now. And later, harvest is still rolling in Louisiana as rice farmers cut a second crop. A check on progress and yield in the country. Bayer is predicting muted ag market growth will put pressure on profitability for its crop science division next year. The news earlier this week pushing the company's stock to a 2-decade low. The German company also reduced its full-year earnings target for this year. It now expects earnings to be between $11.05 billion and $11.36 billion. That's down slightly from what it predicted earlier. Now, for the third quarter, it reported a more than 36% drop in core earnings per share. Sales at Crop Sciences declined by 3.6%. Now, CEO Bill Anderson said the current numbers, quote, aren't that pretty, and acknowledged the frustration investors are feeling, but also asked for patience as Bayer moves forward with a new strategy it outlined in March. Corn continued its third straight session of declines midweek. AgDay's Michelle Rook lets us know if today could become a turnaround Thursday in markets now.
Grains were down for a third day on Wednesday. Sean Hackett is back with analysis. And Sean, despite the fact that we had over 27 million bushels of corn export flash sales, we could not get the corn market or any of the grains moving upward. So how much of this is tied to the strength in the dollar?
I think a good portion is tied to it. When you see the dollar going straight up in a parabolic fashion, like we've seen since the election day, very, very hard to have anything move the market higher against that trend, unless you have extreme weather, which we don't, or you have some extreme tightness in the market, which we don't. Good exports, longer term, is friendly, just not at a time when the dollar is going straight up. That still becomes the number one force that keeps U.S. price commodities under pressure.
No doubt. And with the dollar being higher, a lot of it has coincided post-election. So is this the Trump effect?
It is the betting on the Trump effect. The Trump effect being that we're going to raise tariffs on everybody. We're going to bring the money home. We're going to bring manufacturing home. We're going to bring investment home. And if all that capital comes to the United States from overseas, it has to sell those foreign currencies and buy the U.S. dollar, which then props up the U.S. dollar index. And so whether that's a correct assessment or not, the same thing happened the last time Trump got elected, and it was a false flag when he couldn't get his agenda through as fast as everybody thought. But for right now, that's the trade.
Are we looking ahead at a lot of volatility in this market, do you think?
What we know about a Trump administration from the last time is expect the unexpected, expect constant changes in the narrative over and over again. So yes, sideways trade, lots of ups, lots of down, lots of headline risk until the market can really understand what actually can get through Congress and what actually does it mean for global capital flows and for the global economy. And we're not going to really know that for sure, probably until sometime over the summer when he's able to get his cabinet put together and we really see how he's interacting with Congress.
All right, interesting stuff. Thanks so much, Sean Hackett with Hackett Financial Advisors. We'll have more AgDay coming up. Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rook on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
Taking a look at some of the temperatures this afternoon across the country, we can see a pretty mild and fairly fall-like pattern finally falling across much of the United States, with everybody pretty much in the 50s, maybe even 40s, that are going to be north there of the south there. And then going down south just a little bit, honestly, not too bad at all in only the 70s. Cooling down, though, overnight, and we can see how cool it'll actually get out west. Going to be right around that freezing mark, maybe just a little bit above that freezing mark, and out east, especially in the Midwest and West Coast there, actually going to be fairly mild there. For tomorrow, though, much of a similar situation, but we're starting to see some of that moisture and warmth really start to creep northward. So something we're keeping a very close eye on, as some storm systems actually could form off of that from some of that Gulf moisture. And it's all being I should be saying, by the jet stream. Putting this in motion, we had that closed off low moving out east, ridging moving in. That's why we saw on radar that actually we are going to be clearing out a lot for the middle part of the country. Again, some of those southern plains as well. That's going to be moving on, jumping temperatures above average going into the weekend, but a big change is moving on. As we can see, we're going to start to see this trough, this low area of pressure start to form once again in the four corner states and right up the ridge. And actually what it's going to do is start to deepen and actually become a closed off low, where actually a lot of the country could be seeing some cooler temperatures and honestly the first taste of snowfall of the winter season of 2024. So something to keep in mind, especially for the second half of November. Here's our precipitation outlook. Again, ending November here, November 20th to the 26th. And as we can see, a fairly active pattern in parts of the northern plains going into Iowa and parts of Mississippi as well. And then actually moving out west to, or excuse me, out east as well. We can see that we will still be seeing that above average chance of precipitation, but fairly dry for the Pacific Northwest as well. Same situation for our temperatures as well, where we're going to have some warmer temperatures, especially out east. Winchester, Indiana, showers, high of 55 degrees, low of 46 degrees. Rung, Texas, 81, 47 degrees, pretty nice. And Petersburg, Nebraska, 60 and low at freezing.
It was a tough week for the cattle complex. We'll dig into the latest margin numbers next. And later, taking out a second crop of rice. Raccoon rice harvest is underway in Louisiana today in the country. Beef margins were a bit of a disappointment according to the latest Sterling Beef Profit Tracker. It says the average negotiated cash cattle price dropped $3.44 per hundredweight at the end of last week to $186 per hundredweight, while feedlot margins dropped $56 per head to an industry average of just over $73 per head. Meanwhile, beef packers, they saw profits decline by $42 a head to a loss of more than $58 per head. While cattle marketed last week, they carried a total feed cost just under $481 per head. That's about $37 more than feed costs for cattle sold a year ago. This week, we're celebrating National Veterans Small Business Week. A survey estimates about 1 in 4 employed veterans goes on to work for federal, state, or local governments, but millions more forge a different path, becoming small business owners or veterpreneurs. One of them is veteran Patrick Montgomery, now the CEO of KC Cattle Company. He launched his specialty beef company in Missouri. After a rave review in a magazine, his company went from 20 orders a week to 12,000 in just 24 hours. To help his business grow, Montgomery turned to the Small Business Administration's program for veterans to help build his company.
I am a huge believer that entrepreneurship is a great fit for the veteran community.
Now, 30% of veteran-owned businesses employ fewer than 20 people. KC Cattle Company has 12. Its website says the military taught them values they deliver to your plate. Patrick Montgomery says if he can do it, any veteran can. Rice farmers in Louisiana are still rushing to finish harvest. We'll see how the raccoon rice crop is coming out next in the country.
Ag Day is brought to you by the Pork Checkoff. Your Pork Checkoff dollars are hard at work building a bigger appetite for pork right here at home. One of our main goals is to encourage younger generations to join us at the table. Visit porkcheckoff.org/radio to see how we're reaching this new audience.
Farmers are putting the finishing touches on their second crop rice harvest across southwest Louisiana. As LSU Ag Center correspondent Craig Gautreaux reports, growing conditions were favorable and yields have been good.
On this day, no rice was being harvested across South Louisiana, but for much of October and the first part of November, rice farmers had been busy bringing in their second or ratoon crop. A small silver lining from last year's exceptional drought was the excellent ratoon crop, but this year's is still a good one.
This year we were very fortunate. The yields look pretty good in the second crop. They're not as good as last year. We probably had the best second crop we ever had.
A wetter August during the harvest led to more rutting in fields, which reduced yields of the second crop. Economically, it makes sense to grow a second crop.
They have limited input costs, and so with the limited input costs, you actually see a greater profit on second crop if they can get a good second crop, if the weather conditions are favorable.
Timing is essential in producing a second crop. The first crop must be harvested soon enough to give the ratoon crop the time it needs to mature.
If it's harvested by mid-August, then typically they will go into a ratoon crop. It'll either go into a ratoon crop or crawfish production, or now a lot of it's going into ratoon crop and crawfish production.
Depressed prices for nearly all agricultural commodities are causing rice farmers to be more reliant on a second crop to survive.
Rice is lower than it was last year, so it's been a hardship this year. We really need good yields and good prices for producers to be able to stay in business.
Farmers are anxious to get the few remaining acres harvested before the rice begins to deteriorate. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gotro reporting.
All right, thanks, Craig. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.